So Tighnari and Collei are shaping up to be some of my newest favorite characters, not just because of their characterization and how I personally resonate with their backstories, but simply via their affiliation to the forest. You know, engaging in a profession so often overlooked but so vital to preserving our world's ecosystems. And by the way, this is gonna be a very rambly and gushing kind of video that does contain spoilers for Act 1 of Sumeru's Archon quest and the first 2 acts of the huge Aranyaka world quest. So, Genshin's take on these new characters and just forest rangers in general really stood out to me, since I find it common for games, you know, with all the open world ones nowadays, to promote a narrative of conservation without necessarily highlighting some of the professions that help make that possible in real life. Aside from a scientist and researcher's perspective, I guess. At least from what I've seen. Though let me reiterate that park rangers and scientists aren't mutually exclusive. And so this brings me to Tighnari and how prior to the more detailed trailers and info on Sumeru releasing, I wasn't particularly interested in him as a character, but you better believe the minute I learned he was a forest ranger, I knew I was using my 150 plus saved wishes to pull on his banner. And yes, even if that meant losing the 50-50 at first, cause, you know, I am a Welkin and BP player who has not missed a patch since 1.1, and I still have no D-Luke. So who knows when I would have happened upon a Tighnari after this banner ends. But yeah, I just have such a fondness and respect for park/forest/backcountry, overall all the wilderness rangers, especially so because of the stories I've heard from my dad while growing up, since he spent a large chunk of his adolescence and early young adulthood doing internship work in the California state parks. He even wanted to become a forest ranger before eventually settling into doing what he does now. So seeing how Tighnari would rather be the boots on the ground, preserving the wildlife, while also promoting what's essentially wilderness therapy to Collei, all in spite of his talents for botanical/ecological academics, is just something I really respect about his character. Honestly, Genshin has always excelled at its environmental design, especially in its naturalistic settings, and how, right from the beginning, when we still only had Mondstadt and Liyue on the map, I feel like the nature-inclined players like me could see the amount of effort put into the sheer variety of the scenic landscapes. Or well, especially in Liyue, and how many areas there are based on real-life national reserves/parks in China. Like, does anyone remember those travels from afar videos on Genshin's YouTube channel? I just loved seeing the IRL areas they based Tevat places on, like the Luhua pools. So, in general, it's so cool to see Sumeru giving forest rangers some form of acknowledgement and respect they've always deserved, since without them, we'd have no properly maintained trails or campsites, meaning we'd have to resort to bushwhacking, or in other words, when the brush is so thick, the tree branches whack back at you when you're trying to progress forward. It's quite dangerous, actually. I went off-trail bushwhacking only a couple times, and by the way, you really shouldn't do this because it's bad for the wildlife to overextend our human footprint past designated trails. But yeah, so I've been off-trail a couple times with other people, and one time 2 of my friends disturbed some wasp hive, and fortunately for me, they were quite a ways ahead, so I escaped unscathed when we took off as fast as we could. But they both were stung nearly 10 times each. My father has also told me of the only times he got poison oak was while he was helping the rangers trim them back from the visitor trails. So yeah, part of a ranger's duties is to make sure the designated areas are free of hazards for visitors, or basically like what we help Rana do with the crocodiles in the Aranyaka quest. And like, prior to my physical disabilities and neurological illness, I enjoyed wilderness hiking and backpacking, and I know I wouldn't have been able to enjoy those activities nearly as much if it weren't for all the work the rangers do. Like, even the sign right outside the talent domain warns visitors not to feed the animals, and especially not to get close to the dangerous ones, because it teaches them to be okay near humans. Just reminds me of how there's enough stupid people, honestly, who get too close to bison or bears in order to take a picture, only to get attacked and narrowly escaping with their life. And while I've never helped out in any of these parks myself, I once worked in an outdoor rec department, and one that had a beautiful and expansive outdoors ropes course, which required a good amount of maintenance for the clients that came through our program. And that brings me to sweet daughter Collei. Her story already grabbed me from the webtoon, but it was the fast-forwarding to her essentially picking up on wilderness therapy to help combat her chronic illness that really hit home for me. The illness of Elazar sounds very similar to something like multiple sclerosis or ALS, and having a chronic neurological illness called transverse myelitis myself, and having experienced full-body paralysis before, while knowing the benefits of nature on the mind and body from my past wilderness experience, it just warms my heart that Collei is training to become a forest ranger herself. And knowing that Genshin's English voice direction went with Christina Costello, who would give the performance just that extra degree of oomph since she understands what life is like with chronic illness herself, is just sweet icing on the cake. So it's nice to live that aspect of my previous life I no longer can vicariously through Collei and GL. So we're all aware of the joke touch grass that has been popularized at the average gamer's expense, especially these past couple of years, but legit, they're not necessarily wrong because, I mean, obviously there's a ton of people out there who mean it only judgmentally and to put others down, and that's definitely not cool, but there are plenty of studies that have been done showing that exposure to nature is so beneficial to our mental and therefore physical health, since both are intimately connected. Participants who have been part of these studies have shown lower stress and improved mood overall. Now, no one reasonable is saying stop playing all games and replace them with the great outdoors. It's simply just an attempt to promote better well-being, in my opinion. There's no need to do anything intense like hiking, by the way. Like me currently, I can hardly walk without mobility devices, so simply just sitting outside with some greenery, taking a stroll at your nearest park, something as simple as that can have huge health benefits. But anyway, yeah, I guess to wrap this up, while there's definitely more that can be said about the CCP's actual carbon footprint and handling of environmental issues in China, that's not what this video is about. I just really love how in general, Hoyoverse has drawn attention to the work rangers do, because honestly, they are vital in the IRL fight against climate catastrophe, since the biodiversity of flora and fauna is needed for healthy ecosystems. Rangers and other conservation corps help preserve what wilderness we still have and restore places that have been heavily affected by our human footprint. So yeah, characters like Tighnari and Collei and the whole Aranyaka quest is just really cool. But yeah, check out my character lore compilations and like and subscribe if you wish. Join our welcoming Discord and follow me on Twitter and on Twitch. And overall, just thanks for watching.